Hello, it's me, and I'm going to address something that was asked of me a while ago regarding something that they would like to see. So remember when you first bought and played with a 3x3 Rubik's Cube, how long it took you to kind of learn the different notations, learn the different movements, what it felt when you first solved the puzzle, and then how it felt when you finally were able to do it independent of looking at anything or looking at algorithms, and can put yourself in a position where at any moment you can pick up the puzzle and solve it. Well, the question then became, well, after doing that, what became the kind of puzzle that brought you back to that moment where you had to struggle to learn to solve? In other words, what I believe to be the hardest puzzles that I've solved since the 3x3. Now I say since the 3x3 because I'm actually not going to use the 3x3. It kind of goes without saying, we've all had our troubles with this to start off with. It's generally our introduction into the Twisty puzzle concept. But what I'm going to look at is the top 10 puzzles, top 10 hardest puzzles that I've ever had to do. Now it doesn't mean that I have a hard time solving it now. It merely means that I had a hard time learning to solve it when I was actually trying to discover it. Whether it was trying to come up with the right algorithms, or even when coming up with the right algorithms, sometimes just navigating the solve, even if I know what I'm supposed to do, can oftentimes be a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the top 10 hardest puzzles, either the ones that took me the longest to figure out or the ones that still take me a while to solve, even if I know what I'm supposed to do. So what makes a puzzle difficult, what makes it hard, is usually a combination of one of three aspects of it. Number one would be bandaging. So if you wanted to take a puzzle that you know how to solve and then combine two pieces together that normally aren't bandaged together, it makes it very difficult because you oftentimes can't do the same algorithms that you feel so safe and secure with, causing you to do surrogate algorithms, surrogate moves, and sometimes completely different algorithms to try to get through that. So bandaging represents a particular challenge when it comes to solving puzzles. The second thing would be hybrids. So for me, the problem with a hybrid puzzle is if you're combining a skewb with a cube or something like that, you can solve each one individually, but when you put it together and then do combined scrambles, that makes things very difficult, because then the question is, well, what do you collapse it into? What do you reduce it into? So I find hybrids to be particularly challenging as well. And the third is high order ghosting. So to take a puzzle and put it off center, like this perhaps, and then shave it down, turn it back into a cube or back into a puzzle, and have you solve it as such, where you have to solve it off center, is a particular challenge as well. So those, I find, are the things that really make puzzles more of a challenging. Bandaging, whether internal or external, hybridization, or actual ghosting. So what amongst these are the top 10 puzzles? So I'm going to start off with, well, number 10. Number 10, I would say, which was difficult but not too terrible, is this puzzle over here. Now, I'm going to be doing both mass-produced puzzles and non-mass-produced puzzles, and the reason that I do that is because my hope with some of these videos is I spur enough interest where people make a demand that they would like something mass-produced, and someday maybe that'll happen. So I think there should be a demand for this guy over here when it comes to mass production. This is the offset skewb 2x2x2. So it moves as a skewb, and I can do purely skewb moves, scramble it as such, and solve it as such. So you've got a perfectly good, smooth moving skewb. In addition to that, you've also got a nice 2x2. Functions as a 2x2. Acts as a 2x2. Now, it's not a complete 2x2 because when I make this move here, as this is lined up, I can't move this over here, so actually it's like a Rubik 180. So it's not exactly like a 2x2, so it's not a complete hybrid. But once you start combining these moves with skewb moves, then you have quite a dilemma regarding how to reduce these pieces back together. And this is where the aspect not just of parity came in, but also chirality, of seeing the handedness of these. So I had to apply handedness. Now, if you look at the video, the tutorial on how to solve this, I ended up with a couple types of parities. I did try to reduce it to a skewb, which I was able to do, but I ended up with a couple of really bizarre and complicated parities that had me just jumping around trying to find various algorithms to solve it. That took a while, and even after looking at it, looking at the video, I'm still kind of turning my head in knots and thinking to myself, how the heck did I work my way around that one? So So I would say that something like this, the offset skewb 2x2, certainly is a worthy addition to a top 10 regarding solve difficulty. And if this ever does get made, I anticipate a lot of questions on this one. This and other hybrids tend to be an issue. So number 10 would be the offset skewb 2x2x2. So what then is going to be number 9? Well, number 9, I would have to say probably this guy over here. Now this is a crazy Megaminx, a planetary series. Specifically this one is Saturn. Now do I find Saturn to be harder than say Venus or others? I would say it's at least as hard, if not the hardest. And what it is you've got a circle puzzle over here. So these circles are stationary here, but not all circles are stationary. This is stationary here as well. But then you've got this one that's not stationary. Now if only all of them were stationary, it wouldn't be that difficult. It would just be like a super Megaminx, and a lot of these pieces will just fall into place. But when you have multiple areas, not just one layer, but multiple layers that don't move, and they're they're in somewhat proximity of each other, that does make for a big challenge. And I remember spending a long time figuring out a strategy with this. Now there's the planetary cube series as well. That had its degree of difficulty. The Megaminx series was that, but to a larger degree. So I'm going to let this be the good representation of this entire series, of which the Saturn Megaminx was probably among the harder ones that I had to solve. So it's not just a matter of the difficulty in finding the algorithms, but the difficulty in maneuvering things to get to the final levels. Even if you know the strategy, know the algorithms, it's difficult to get there. And then there's this seemingly endless process of putting in the final pieces, these final corners here, actually, these inner corners. Yeah, that is a very specific algorithm, and it takes a lot of setups and resetups. So even if you know what you're doing, it still takes kind of a lot of time to do that. So planetary series by itself is a worthy addition to the top 10, of which in particular the Saturn Megaminx certainly belongs up there, and that would be number 9. So what do we have with number 8? Well, I'd have to say number 8, I'm going to put this guy here. Now in future series I'm going to have this part of that as well when I talk about the top 5 most intricate puzzles, but this certainly has a place at the table of among the more difficult ones. Now, this isn't the only face-turning icosahedron 20-sided puzzle. There are others. There's a radiolarian. There's the Virgo's pentagram. There's the Rex dodecahedron. You're going to get a very similar solving experience with, and also there's the icosiacs. So I could easily have the Rex dodecahedron, the icosiacs, and the Virgo's pentagram right next to this as well, as they're pretty much kind of the same type of a puzzle. However, this one seems to have all the different components. Some of them don't have the center, some of them don't have these little edges here. This one does have all the aspects of a face-turning icosahedron. It has just the right depth where you're going to get everything you're going to have of all those other puzzles, plus more. So this is the most complex, complicated version of the face-turning icosahedrons. And this, again, took a little while to try to navigate through discovering all the different algorithms. Now, the way that I solved this was as a couple of different puzzles at once. In other words, I would have to get separate algorithms for these centers, separate algorithms for these corners, for these edges, and then for these outer corners over here. And then there's all these setups. Now, to find the right proper algorithms to move to 3-cycle these guys took a little while as well, and it takes some concentration to have happen. This is my favorite of the face-turning icosahedrons as well because the movement is so smooth. The likelihood of pops and wrong turns and lockups is so much less, plus I can move clockwise and counterclockwise pretty easily too. So this is a good one. It was a tough one to figure out, and certainly belongs in the top 10. So this would be number 8. So what then is number 7? Well, number 7 is we're going to start to move into the bandages, and we're going to move into this guy over here. So this one I had a hard time with. This took me a long time to do, and this is the wall cube, also called the Burr cube. You can convert from one to the other. The problem with this is right off the get-go, you can see you've got a lot of bandaging, and you have to put it in kind of a ready position in order to get it unbandaged. Even so, you still don't have it quite right. You're going to want to get this turned 180 degrees. So I had to come up with an algorithm to try to turn this, and even use algorithms to get a good scramble before getting it in right. So I found myself bringing this up over here, and in order to even start scrambling, I had to put it into something of a ready position where you do U to M, UI to M, U to M, UI to M, U to M, UI to M. Bring this back down here. So I was able to turn this 180 degrees, and now I can make this move. Once I was able to do that, then I could try to apply 2x2x3 algorithms and then 3x3x2 algorithms. As you can see, we're kind of in that modality over here. Wasn't completely correct the way that I could do that, but still it allowed me to come up with a strategy for this. And then we can try to move this back. U to M, UI to M, U to M, UI to M, U to M, UI to M. And now we get it in its full solved position. So yeah, this was a tough one, but a lot of fun to try to figure out in terms of bandaging. Okay, so now we have number 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So number 6 before we get to the top 5. Well, once again, they're going to be bandaged puzzles, and I'm actually going to bring 2 out because they're very similar to each other. The first is going to be this guy over here. This is called the Bicube. And you can see it's got some extreme bandaging here, and this extreme bandaging rendered pretty much most of the algorithms useless. Eventually I had to come up with 2 algorithms to solve it, and that's all I really needed. So it was pretty easy to do once I figured it out, but it was the process of figuring it out that was the problem. I actually had to use algorithms in order to get it scrambled appropriately, and then from there could apply 2 algorithms in order to get in the solved position, but it was all a question of strategy while using the 2 algorithms. I'm going to bring this out in addition to that at the same time, as you can maybe see some of the similarities here. So I guess I can hold it, I don't know, like this. But anyway, this is the Bicube. This is the Bandaged 3, I think it's called. But you can see it can be reduced to this. If I bring these 2 together and these 2 together, I can reduce this puzzle to this puzzle. This is tough in its own right, and that reduction process is pretty tough as well. But it is possible to reduce it, so I used the scenarios that I used with this guy, applied it to this, once I figured out how to reduce it. But this one is a tough one. Both of them are tough. So I'm actually going to combine them together. I didn't really want to do 2 separate listings for both of them because they're kind of similar in their difficulty, but I didn't want to exclude any either. So this is hard in and of itself. This is difficult in that you have to reduce it to this. Once you do that, you can apply the same concept. So there it is. That would be number 6 of the top 10 most difficult puzzles.